Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It is me, MsNoBuntu DIV, a divine inspired, vibrantly anointed artist, and I'm back again with episode 2's thoughts and review of Taraji P. Henson's Peace of Mind. She's doing this together with her best friend, still haven't gotten her name. And so this episode was the one where Tamar Braxton was there, and also a mother and daughter duo, Shelly and her daughter. So the format of this show is that they'll have a well-known person, celebrity there in the first segment sharing their story, and then in the second story they have someone that's not necessarily a public figure or a celebrity coming to share their own story as well, a similar story. I think to create a correlation and a mirror relation between, to create a mirror equivalent, to show that what normal non-public eye and non-celebrity people go through are the very same things that people that are in the public eye go through. The only difference is that the one is in the public eye and the one is not in the public eye, but that there is this commonality in humanity that doesn't exempt anyone because one person is in the public eye and one person is not in the public eye. There is no one thing that makes the person's life who's not in the public eye more oblivious and more susceptible to mental health issues than the person who's in the public eye. It's the same thing, and that mental issues do not skip over public figures. And so I think that's what the model of this show is trying to show, that what normal people, as in people that are not in the public eye, are going through, public figures go through as well, and there's that common thread that no one is exempt. So Tamar Braxton comes in and she is sharing her story, about her recent suicide attempt, and the question is if she can look back and she can think about a timestamp, when did the breakdown in her mental health begin? And she kind of chalks it down. She says she points back to the time when she was fired on the real, and I call it being fired illegally, because whenever you're fired and you're not given a reason and there's no recourse for being fired, that's being fired illegally, and people do it because they can, for whatever reason, because a large corporate and you one small person, and you could try to fight it, and there are channels through which you can fight it, but it's going to cost you as an individual more than the corporation is going to be cost. So she says that's where the spiral went down, and she says moving from that toxic situation of being her job ending in that way, and then really going back into the very same industry that's pretty much treating you the same way, that for her created and started the spiraling and the unraveling, that then culminated and compounded into her wanting to take her own life. A part of me, as she was telling this story, I was like, well, okay, where's the accountability of, hey, Tamar created a caricature for television in order to be able to get these jobs and sustain these jobs in the reality world, in the TV world. But then again, I thought, you know what, I get it. I can't do my sister like that. The reason that she had to create such a caricature in order to be in a show like The Real, one of such vibrancy, someone so outgoing, no one is that outgoing all the time. You might be that outgoing at a party, but then you go back home and you're more quiet. You might be that outgoing when you're around people, but then you're alone and you're quiet. But to be that all the time and be turned on all the time, that's exhausting, and no one is like that all the time, even the extroverts of all extroverts. So I said, I'm not going to do my sister like that. in just looking at this episode. So she created that because she knew that's how she could get a job. That's how she was going to get attention. That's how she was going to distinguish herself from anybody else who was up for hiring. And that's how she was going to keep her job, by creating this caricature and keep that caricature going. In order to be able to make a living, in order to survive as an adult and be able to be independent financially and be able to stand and just be, experience that threefold shalom of prosperity, stability, and security as an adult, and not have to live at home and not have to depend on anyone. You know what I mean? And so I don't blame her that she created that caricature, and I cannot say, oh well, you're accountable. I think it's a play. It's something that gets put on you, and you make a choice, and you're between a rock and a hard place, and you have to decide, I need to make a living, and they need me to be bubbly all the time. They need me to be loud and whatever all the time, and represent a ghetto girl, so-called ghetto girl all the time. Then I'll do that if that's how I'm gonna get paid. I can do that. Because the opposite of that is that I have a life to maintain, and who's going to maintain it for me if I don't have any kind of income, So she talks about that, and she says that she was, her suicide attempt was because she felt like she was embarrassing Logan, her son. And she had become this character, just this, ghetto mama on television. And she really wanted to absolve him from being part of, embarrassment and public humiliation. And so thought the best thing to do was to actually just take herself out of the picture, so her son wouldn't continue to be kind of embarrassed by the kind of character that she was on television, and also unraveling on television. I really, really wanted to review her show, Get Your Life, but I wasn't sure what God was saying to me when he said review this show. But I was supposed to actually review that show, and I'm thinking of reviewing it in retrospect, might do it. And so she says she wanted to get out of the way so that she would stop, embarrassing her son. And that's what made sense for her at that time. So the premise of this particular episode 2 of Peace of Mind is an antithesis, really antithesizing this notion of a strong black woman who has to push through no matter what the circumstances are, and just keep it pushing. The light is going out. The antithesis is obviously that we don't have to be the strong black woman, and we don't have to not admit when we are struggling, and no, we don't have to keep it pushing when traumas are exerted upon us and inflicted upon us. When a knock is being inflicted upon you, to just keep pushing as if nothing happened causes harm to yourself in the short, medium, and long term. Not even in the long term, in the short, medium, and long term. And to dispel this notion that, black women are just strong and should, we push through, and with a strong black woman. And I totally agree with this. This year, I'm in the middle of doing a dissertation for my master's, and then this happened. But there were a whole lot of other circumstances around, my life, of things that were like, whoa, a lot to take, And I knew that the expectation from my supervisors was to push through and be the strong black woman. And I said to myself, absolutely not. I'm not going to be the strong black woman. I am not falling behind on my studies. I'm surviving a pandemic. I'm surviving having to be in a lockdown for 6 months, isolated by myself. I'm surviving job loss. I'm surviving, people being jealous of me in the middle of a pandemic and then sending black magic to me. I am surviving a number of things. And every time that, there would be that thing that says, push, do more than what you can. I would say, no, gentle, gentle, no, gentle, gentle. And I say this to, preempt what the next guests were saying in their testimonies of their own journey with mental unwellness back to mental health. Shirley and her daughter, for some reason I can't remember her name, and so the daughter and the mother come in, and the mother shares a story of how she had gone through a very, horrible breakup, and she really was struggling mentally. And she started to hear voices, and she remembers at a time just putting her daughter to bed and just curling up in a fetal position and holding her head and saying to God, take me out of here, take me out, because then if you take me out, then it'll be better if I take myself out, and my daughter will have a better understanding of why I'm out of here. It wouldn't have been. But I think suicide comes not because you want to kill yourself. I heard Ian Levanzan say this many, many years ago, that, when people are attempting suicide, they're not actually trying to kill themselves. They just want the pain to stop. I've had that experience where I just want the pain to stop, and it's not that you want to take yourself out, but you want a break from the pain. So this lady talks about that experience, and so Taraji says, well, in assuming that she probably eventually went for therapy, she says, well, then goodness, then you went for therapy, and what did you discover in therapy? And she's like, no, I didn't go to therapy. But what she did, she comes from a Christian background, a strong born-again Christian background, and the thing that she did was that, which I've done as well in my own journey with in ascertaining my own mental wellness, is that she began to say to herself that beyond two things, she's not doing more than two things at a time. She's going to process everything, and when she feels any kind of emotion of anxiety, of anger, of uncertainty, she's going to stop and inquire what that emotion is about and what had happened, and she's going to process through that. And I really, that's something you have to do when you are becoming mentally unwell. Everything seems overwhelming, and it really forces you to really slow down and do a whole lot less than if you were well you would be able to do. And it's a way of protecting your well-being from a spiritual, physical to mental being. And it is the same. I like what Tamar also said towards the end, speaking in relation to her son Logan, when she said they played this game. It's called Roses and Thorns, and this is a game where they will talk about the roses, the things that went well, check in on each other. What went well today, and how did that make you feel? What didn't go well today, the thorns, and how did that make you feel? How did you recover from that? And that's a way of just checking in on yourself, and it's just so important to just have that moment of checking in on yourself. And I think about when I was 19 years old and I decided, I just thank God that it was so early in my life that I decided to go to therapy for literally once every week for 9 months. I enrolled myself in, and I went to therapy. And I don't even think my parents knew, but I was watching a lot of, the Oprah Winfrey Show at that time, and it was literally every show therapy. It was that part of the show where there was a lot of therapists on the show, and I was really watching all of that, and I became aware of my own need for this kind of help, and I checked in with myself and trusted my own instinct and my own needs, and I checked myself into therapy, and I was there for about 9-10 months. And after that, I really felt like I had been heard, and I'd received some kind of release from whatever it is I was going through or had gone through for the first 19 years of my life. But having watched the shows that I was watching with the different experts on, the Oprah show, as well as going into this space of therapy for 9 months, I have carried those tools, and I'm one of those people who advocates for actually a combination of your faith. My faith with therapy is what works for me. My faith is a Christian faith, and going to God first and foremost, because He knows me and He knows how to heal me. He's a healer. Going to God first and not praying it away, but bringing it to Him and asking Him for help with it, and asking Him to touch me and to heal me and to release that power to heal me, and really staying at His feet in His word to find the solutions to the things that occur, to the affronts that create trauma and harm and hurt, and need to get some therapeutic help. I start there all the time, and I combine that with therapy. And for me, that combination is what works and centers me back and gets me back to a cathartic place, a cathar-sized place, and I feel well again. It's a combination of the two. I don't know what it's going to be for you, but advocate for yourself and go get it, what it is for you. And it must be something that you truly understand. I go to my faith because it's something that I'm rooted and founded in. And it's something that I truly understand, and something that creates me and makes me and defines me. So going to something else wouldn't make sense to me. So Shelley's daughter comes in and she begins to talk about, how, her anxiety and her trouble that led to her going to therapy is that, I think her name is Sheree. I could be incorrect, but I think her name is Sheree. Her anxiety came about when she turned 25, still living at home, and I guess things hadn't come together for her. And she was just like, what does this mean? And it's always confusing when you expected certain things and expected yourself to be at a certain point in your life, and you find yourself somewhere where you don't recognize in accordance to what you envisioned or imagined or expected. So that created anxiety for her. And, Shelley says she got to a point where her and her, they would be trying to talk to her as a parent, and she would cry because she created this hypersensitivity and oversensitivity around, talking about anything, and created, an anxiety attack for her. And then that's when she said, okay, you have to go into therapy. And she did, and she has since found that her mental health has improved, and she's healing, moving away from unwellness into health and wellness mentally. So my takeaway from this episode is that slowing down when you feel anxiety, when you start being hypersensitive to everything and everything makes you fall into a panic, then it's time to slow down. Once your arm starts numbing, it's time to slow down. Once you start losing sight in your right eye, it's time to slow down. Once you start to get some kind of physical or mental or psychological or even spiritual symptom of something is wrong, slow all the way down and only commit yourself to very few tasks that are manageable in a day, which is what I always do. And I think that should be a life practice. People probably shouldn't be having a back-to-back from break of dawn to, end of day on their schedule. Otherwise you're like a burning candle on both ends. There is no break. There is no time to take a breath and reflect. And when you don't have that, you burn out. And you don't, and the second thing is, you don't have to be a strong black anything. You don't have to push through anything that's too hard to take for everybody else, but because you're a darker shade of black. That's the other thing that came up, that Taraji's best friend said she discovered that the darker the skin tone, people expect you to be stronger and to push through some BS. And I'm like, nope, no sir, no ma'am, I'm not pushing through anything. I like my chestnut skin, but I am not pushing through anything. And if you want to call me names and say I'm weak, go ahead. I know that I'm healthy when I don't push through anything that I'm not supposed to push through. I need to be able to advocate for myself and my own health and say, this is a lot for me and I need to slow down. This is a lot for me and I need to practice gentleness with myself in this situation, and not require more from myself than I can and what is possible. And these are practices, these are mental health practices that one has to take on if you are going to sustain mental health. Is that my motto right now is gentle, gentle, just gentle, gentle. And so I would just encourage you to just be kind to yourself in this time. You have survived a lot, particularly in this year, but in your own life, particularly as a person who looks like me, my goodness, you're surviving an affront once every few days, if not every day. So gentle, gentle, and you don't have to push yourself to prove yourself to anyone. You know, there is this whole saying about how you kill them with success, the people who've done you wrong. No, if it's a knock, it's a knock. Take the knock, and you know, if it's a trauma, it's a trauma. Take the trauma, and that's what it is. And don't try to fight back with, well, kill them with greater success, kill them with greater push and greater hard work. No, take the knock, lay down, take a moment, take a breather, rest, recuperate, and get back when you have completely come to a place of balance, and you can see clearly and you can navigate clearly. Be kind to yourself, be kind to your soul, your body, and your spirit. You don't have to push through hard things like you're not a normal person. You don't have to push through what is unbearable because you're supposed to. No, you're not supposed to do any of those things. So take off. For me, I don't even think I've ever put on the strong black woman cape. Maybe a superwoman or perfectionist cape, but it's this thing that doesn't exist. And so, and in the interim, you kill yourself trying to attain perfection and perpetuate perfection, and you don't have to. And the moment I set myself free from all of that, I lived. And if I look weak at some moments, yeah, maybe I'm just going through a moment of unwellness, and one needs to convalesce and take time to do exactly that, because if you don't take time to heal a wound, then you're going to go all over the place bleeding, right? This is what we've learned. So take time, heal those wounds, take out the sepsis, and make sure that you go out there as a whole and healed person. And if it means taking time off, do that. Thank you for tuning in for episode 2 and of this interesting talk show. It's a talk show. It's not a series, actually. It's a talk show. So I am so excited to be reviewing it, and I will see you again next time. Thank you. I really appreciate you for continuing to tune into the channel. Still out here just convalescing from this year and having just a great time. And I just encourage you to find those moments of tranquility for yourself, and of peace of mind, and of healing every day. Make time for yourself. I will see you again next time. I appreciate you. Bye.